Seriously. I don't do stuff like that unless they have it. Thank you.
Good evening. Oh, is this Jay recording? Oh, okay. No pictures. I call this meeting to order, the council meeting for Tuesday, September 4th, 2018. If you have a phone, and ask you to place it on silent, we will begin with a moment of silence. Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk Domingo, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Barnes. Reed. Brown.
Here.
Lawler.
Here.
Spicer.
Here.
French. And Mayor Brown.
Here. I'd like to ask just to add one additional presentation on as item E under presentations from. Is the mic working now? Okay. A presentation on I guess a lead task force initiative, and if I have a motion to do that, please.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Any opposed? Okay, so we've added that as a presentation E. Okay. Under presentations, item A, Healthy Babies Day proclamation. Okay. City of Albion celebrates Healthy Babies Day September 15th, 2018. Whereas September 15th, 2018 will be the 10th annual Healthy Babies Day in Albion, whose mission is to connect families with community health information and resources to promote the health and safety of babies. And whereas the longevity of this event is a testament to the dedication and enthusiasm of many local volunteers, some who have been part of this committee since 2009, and whereas this event is helping hundreds of local babies get a better start in life and is in a partnership with the Albion Healthcare Alliance, the First United Methodist Church, and the Healthy Baby Day Committee, and whereas the City of Albion, the Albion City Council recognizes Healthy Babies Day in Albion, is celebrated for parents who are expecting, those who have children up to 18 months old, as well as their caregivers for families from Albion and the surrounding areas. Now, therefore, I, Garrett Brown, Mayor of the City of Albion, do proclaim September 15th, 2018 as Healthy Babies Day in Albion. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Jessica Mitchell, and this year I'm coordinating the event with a lot of awesome help. We have Alfreda Dysert-Drake, who is with the Albion Healthcare Alliance, who is doing a lot of work. She is getting a lot of diapers and wipes donations from local churches and doing a lot of other things. We have Miss Eddie Williams here, who is a huge volunteer for our effort. And have you been in part for the last 10 years since the birth, 10 years ago? And then we are in partnership with the First United Methodist Church near the college and the Albion Healthcare Alliance, and we are thrilled that one of the board members, Richard Lindsay, is here. So a lot of volunteers, a lot of organizations have their hands all over Healthy Babies Day. It's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, a lot of love, and I'm so grateful for the support of the city. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Jill. Thank you, City Council members, and thank you to this community, because we could not be what we are without them. Thank you. Mr. Mayor wants me to remind you our event is a week from Saturday, September 15th. So if you know any women who are expecting or who have little ones, send them to the Albion Community Center behind Family Fair, Saturday from 11 till 1:30. Thank you.
Thank you. Item B under presentation, Sinclair Design and Engineering.
Some of the numbers may be hard to see
Oh,
on
okay.
the screen.
Oh, was this just?
She has a copy. She has the remote if you want it.
Oh. And it's just the right button to go forward?
This is.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and the remaining City Council members in attendance tonight. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of my company and my family. I am Kyle Sinclair, co-owner of Sinclair Designs and Engineering. We currently lease the Albion Incubator building, which is managed by Amy DePrez and her team at the Albion Economic Development Corporation. It's been an absolute pleasure working with Amy and her team, and their contributions to our company have directly contributed to our growth over the last few years. The EDC offered us low-cost rental solutions in 2015 with the hopes that our business would develop and transition into the Albion community within 3 to 5 years. We are now within that 3 to 5 year window, and the timing of the increased rental prices have hit us during a critical point in our company's growth. And the industrial real estate options in Albion for our company's needs are very limited. That being said, I'm here today requesting that the City of Albion accepts our purchase offer for the incubator building located at 1104 Industrial Boulevard. The sale of the building will benefit both the City of Albion with future manufacturing jobs, and it will help us continue to grow our company to the next level. Here are the key topics that I will be presenting to you tonight. I'll give a quick overview of our company, our manufacturing capabilities, show you the sales and our company's growth within the last 3 years. I also have an organization chart that depicts our current structure and what we're looking to develop in 2019 to 2020. Also, I'll talk about some out-of-pocket expenses that we've put into the building, and then I'll follow up with conclusion. Quick company overview. In 2014, my father and I, who's here with me tonight, Kevin Sinclair, we decided to chase the American dream in Marshall, Michigan, and started a company in our pole barn. So we took a $80,000 loan from Marshall Community Credit Union, purchased a couple CNC machines, started networking within our local area, looking for companies who needed CNC machining and fabrication services. Then 3 years later, after multiple 90-hour work weeks and little to no sleep, we have developed a multi-million-dollar business right here in Albion. We maintain 12 to 15 full-time employees who are paid between $14 and $20 an hour, and will soon offer family benefit packages. We have invested heavily into manufacturing equipment that supports high-volume metal stamping and forming operations, CNC machining, and coil processing lines. We also have built strategic partners with many steel suppliers and steel service centers throughout the Midwest region. Currently, we purchase between 1.2 and 1.5 million pounds of steel a quarter to support our operations. We are broken into 3 manufacturing divisions. We have a metal fab division, a CNC machining division, and our welding and assembly division. This is a good overview of our 2017 sales percentage by market. We currently support 3 major markets. We're in the CNC machining market, which kind of supports the auto industry in this area. We also support the solar market, and we also support the radio astronomy and satellite communication market. 10% of our sales support various local companies such as Advanced Field Components, CDI, and Marshall Excelsior here locally. 40% of our sales come from the radio astronomy and SATCOM industry. We are a supplier to Intertronic Solutions, who is a subcontractor for NASA. And in 2019, we are on schedule to build 4 to 6 12-meter radio astronomy antenna systems to support a global NASA array project. To date, we have only built 2 of these systems, which is presented up on the slide. We are in the process of scaling our business to support this large contract, and moving our company to a new location in 2019 would hinder our ability to scale our operations. And lastly, 50% of our sales is in the solar market, which I'll discuss on the next slide. Despite the current international tariffs on Chinese solar panels and metals, we are seeing a booming solar market in America. It is also an exciting time to have our roots in Michigan, as Governor Snyder recently passed an energy bill to increase Michigan's renewable energy from 10% to 15% by 2021. So we already have the infrastructure developed to support states' programs. Now we just need to focus on marketing and getting the word out there of what we can accomplish. We are a manufacturing resource for Patriot Solar Group and GenMounts Renewables Energy, and we are working toward broadening our customer base in the solar industry, specifically in New Jersey, Maryland, and on East Coast developers. We also manufacture products in all 3 fields in the solar market. So on the slide, you'll see that we are selling roof mount systems, ground mount systems, and most recently we added the carport solar system to our profile of products. And it's interesting to see other companies like us. Each company sort of has a niche in each industry. We are kind of putting ourselves in competition with some of the big players who, like us, have their hand in each little market. So every year the market changes. 2015 was very big in roof mounts. 2016 was very big in ground mounts. 2017 was the biggest year for carports. So as that market fluctuates based on the changes of legislation throughout America, we're set up structurally to be able to take on larger, high-volume orders. This slide depicts our company's growth from 2015 to 2018 and outlines the increased square footage, number of employees, annual rent, and our annual labor cost. In 2015, we started with 7,000 square feet, and each year we began to take on more space as new opportunities presented themselves and as we spent a lot more money on equipment to support those operations. And you'll see, as of this year in 2018, we now have taken over the whole building and rent all of the square footage, including all the office space. This slide depicts our sales overview by customer. From 2015 to 2018. We observed a 22% increase in sales in 2017, and we are on target to hit an additional 60% increase by the end of this year. This increase from 22 to 60% in 2018 is mainly due to broadening our customer base in the solar market and introducing our new carport system to those specific customers. On the left side of this slide is an overview of our current organization structure. We have 17 employees, which include Kevin and myself. and our total cost of labor this year is estimated to be at $350,000. On the right hand of the slide shows how we will restructure our company to support our growth in 2019, specifically to help scale our operations in support of the large contract with Intertronic Solutions for the global 12-meter array system. I've highlighted 6 new employee positions, which will increase our estimated labor costs from $350,000 to $530,000. We will add positions to both our fabrication and welding divisions to help with overlapping SATCOM and solar projects. This slide depicts our out-of-pocket expenses that we have spent to invest in the building, which is approximately just over $20,000 worth of electrical upgrades, wall removals, and interior alterations in the shipping and receiving bay. The high-volume freight shipments that is part of our operation is also causing a lot of wear and tear on the asphalt. And within the areas that are highlighted in red, we had the repairs quoted at $30,000. This is an expense that we are willing to make if the building would be sold to us. Lastly, we are very interested in excavating the property on the east side of the building. This would allow us to expand the building and segregate our shipping and receiving areas. Space restriction has been our biggest challenge year after year, and I've presented an image on there which shows our shipping and receiving that has approximately 600,000 pounds of steel product that ships between 1 and a 2 week period. So it gets very congested with trucks. The future expenses add up to about $135,000, and I've outlined that on the slide for you. When we started speaking with Amy about the property and taking a little bit deeper dive into it, we were very excited to see that that property line expanded all the way to that back road near Georgia Pacific. So that actually provides a lot of opportunity for us to excavate that area, pour foundation and concrete, and expand the building to open up space to scale our operations in 2019. And that cost is about $135K on top of the current assessed market value of the incubator building. In conclusion, I hope you all vote yes to the sale of the incubator building. Availability of industrial real estate that meets our needs in Albion is limited. Moving to a new location in 2019 will be expensive, timely, and negatively impact our ability to fulfill our current large contracts. Future building modifications will also increase the property value.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council? Do you want to mention the comment you made in EDC meeting about what we might do if we... Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, next we'll have a presentation from Albion Malleable Brewing. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Ben Noaden, one of the owners of Albion Malleable Brewing Company. I don't have any fancy slides for you to look at tonight, but I'm going to talk to you for a few minutes. It's been a little while since we've been down here, and since then we opened a brewery in downtown Albion. Our final project, by the time we opened the doors, ended up being an investment in downtown Albion of about $1.2 million. That came almost entirely from the community. We used local investment sources, the bulk of being Homestead Bank. We had a great local bank to partner with. We used loans from Albion EDC, as well as investors such as the New Albion Impact Group, and a lot of local community stakeholders. We had an investment platform called Local Stake that allowed people to invest at a smaller level, and we have dozens of stakeholders within the community who came out and supported this. We used a number of local contractors to do the work. Again, when we could, we tried to employ as many in Albion as possible. Companies like Albion Electric, Ken Shenstone, WB Infrastructure. There were a number of people that were a part of the build-out for this building downtown. The revitalized building was from 1890, was vacant, had very outdated infrastructure, had some structural support issues through the roof and some parts of the building that we were able to beef up as part of this. So we took a building that probably without some significant investment in the near future didn't have a very long life left in it. Now that we're open for business, we employ between 35 and 40 people. They work a total number of hours that represents about 20 full-time employees on a weekly basis. We're working with as many local businesses and resources as possible as part of the business. We've featured items and produce from Jolly Green Junction. We've sold nuts from Cascarelli's, both in Albion and Homer. We've used items from Foundry Bakehouse, Great Lakes Olive Oil, which is an Albion-owned company, J&D's Honeybees, Mean Hops, Dark Horse Commons. We've bought and given away prizes from Sterling Books, the Bohm Theater. So we've really tried to reach out and incorporate a lot of the businesses in town and roll them into what we're doing. The business itself, I know a lot of you have been in. If you haven't, I encourage you to come try a burger sometime. We are very food focused. We've been very, very positively received as a restaurant on top of being a brewery. We're actually generating about 65 to 70% of our revenue right now from food and merchandise. So we're a very food forward establishment. We've also been extraordinarily well received in the community and in the area. We've racked up hundreds of reviews in the few months that we've been open, with a 4.5 rating on Google, a 4.8 Facebook review rating, and a 5 out of 5 Yelp score so far. These reviews are coming not just from the community, but from a pretty wide area. It's kind of hard to get an exact feel from, we don't really have a metric on where everybody's coming from, but we spend a lot of time in the tap room talking to our customers. And it's pretty evident on a nightly basis that easily half of the people coming in, probably closer to 60 to 70%, are coming in from Marshall. They're coming from Jackson, Battle Creek, Homer. We have become a destination that is drawing people to Albion. And we've worked with our staff and our servers and our bartenders to help them promote the town when they learn that somebody's coming here from out of town. So we talk about the Bohm. We tell people about other events that are happening in town, and hopefully some of this traffic becomes repeat traffic and comes back into the town. We've been featured, again, getting our name and the city's name out beyond the town's borders. We've been featured on MLive. We had a Battle Creek Inquirer food review. Recently, we filmed a segment for a show called Food Trippin' in the Mitten, which is run by a radio group that does 107.7, 94.9, 103.3, very large number of the stations kind of in the region, west side of the state. They came in and filmed in the kitchen, sampled some food, and did a really nice video blog of the event. We talked about breweries when we first came down and kind of pitched this idea as being space makers, and kind of all of this leads into that, right? Breweries attract people from the larger community. It's a very vibrant business community in the state of Michigan. We are now officially a member of the Michigan Brewers Guild, as well as the National Craft Brewers Association. We work with a company called Tag-A-Brew, which is basically a collectible chip that breweries around the state of Michigan have that you can purchase at any brewery that participates that you visit. So we've actually had people drive from Grand Rapids, Detroit, because they've located us on Tag-A-Brew, and they come in and collect us as part of their experience. In the very near future, we'll begin participating in some of the Brewers Guild festivals and state festivals that draw thousands, tens of thousands of people to some of them. The State Brewers Festivals, the Summer Festival in Ypsilanti. Our first one will be actually the Bonta Oktoberfest, which is a beer festival that's held in Binder Park Zoo during the month of October. So we will be there set up to serve at the zoo amongst about 80 breweries from all over the state. So again, it's a chance for us to put our name, and as Albion Malibu, also the name of the city in front of a lot of people who may not know that we're here. Also, in that same vein, in the next week or so, we're going to get our first tap handles out into markets. So we've been working with a couple of people that have been very friendly to us in the short term, as far as other restaurants and other establishments that serve beer. And we're starting to get requests from a lot of restaurants in different areas, some of which are very humbling. I think we're getting requests from some really, really great directions. So we're in talks with not only Cascarelli's, again, here and in Homer, but with restaurants like Clavon's and Jackson and Schuler's and Marshall, and the Horrocks store in Battle Creek that has a beer sale in it as well. So we're in talks with some places that draw a lot of customers and a lot of craft beer fans. And again, we have the chance to put our tap handles out there and Albion's name out in these locations. Part of that space making, we become a location for events. We do live music every Monday, except for Blues at the Bohm. We don't conflict with the Blues at the Bohm event and the success that they've already had. We pay all of our musicians that come down, so we're, again, employing local artists there in Albion and in the greater area who are willing to make a trip down to the brewery. Wednesdays have been bingo nights. We've been doing a free bingo on Wednesday for fun. We give away T-shirts. We go down and we buy gift cards from Sterling Books and Brew, stuff like that, and we give away small prizes over the course of the evening while we play bingo. Every Friday, there's a local running club that's begin meeting there and doing a 5K run, leaving from the brewery and coming back to the brewery. Sunday mornings, we host 2 bike rides, a 40-mile ride at 9 a.m. and a 15-mile ride at 10:30 a.m. So we have a group of cyclists. We've been getting up to about 20 cyclists in a weekend. Most of them are actually coming from Battle Creek and Kalamazoo, and they're driving into Albion every day to do this ride because they like the environment, they like the ride that we've chosen, which takes us out to the Falling Waters Trail between Concord and Jackson and back in, and they like wrapping up at the brewery, which is a space they like to gather in and talk to other cyclists. We also had our first yoga at the brewery event this past month. So we had a yoga instructor from Jackson that came in and taught a course pre-open on a Sunday while the bikers were out on their ride. And it was pretty well received. We had about 8 people for the first event, which for trying anything first time in this town is a success for us. We've seen similar numbers with the biking event that's up to about 20 now, and it's a good turnout. We also talked pre-open with Space Making Craft Brewery about their businesses that give back. Right? They try to be very involved in the community and they invest in the community. We are a sponsor for Walk the Beat this year. We've been involved with Walk the Beat since it was conceived. This will be the 3rd time around, so we've had some involvement with it each time. This year we are a full sponsor. We're also a sponsor of the Swing at the Shell and Albion 5K series. We support. And part of both of those is a theme of music. We're very supportive of live music, which has been a big draw to the city, and we hope continues to be a big draw to the city of Albion. We're going to be working with the Fountain Clinic in Marshall and Newly Cycles. They're hosting an event called the Smile Ride, which is going to be a 100K bicycle ride fundraiser for the Fountain Clinic. We're a sponsor for them, and we're an in-kind sponsor for the Bohm Theater as well. We've also donated other ways. We've given food and merchandise to things such as the local Boy Scout troop as part of their pig roast, items for the Kids and Stuff auction, and cash donation to the Crossroads Church Haiti Goat project that they've done. Raised money for Make-A-Wish Foundation for the Wish a Mile Ride and the Arts and Eats Tour, which promotes arts and food across Michigan, and Albion will be a stop on with both us and Sterling Books. And we volunteer hours too. We've had myself and my partners and our chef has volunteered in things like the public safety chili cook-off and Men Who Cook for a couple of years now. So we're also trying to get out and participate actively when we can. So that's kind of the summary of the date. The agenda item that we have in question is we are interested in pursuing an early permit for Sunday service. So under the state of Michigan alcohol rules, we cannot serve alcohol before noon. Where that impacts us more greatly right now is, as a manufacturer, that means we can't be open before noon. We can't sell food, we can't do a brunch. We have something like the yoga at the brewery event. We can't so much as sell them a soda or a cup of coffee before 12 o'clock, so we're very limited to what we can do as we build up these kind of other events. In the future, we're interested in possibly doing things like brunches. We don't have very many restaurants open on Sundays in general in Albion. Certainly not downtown. I think we're the only business downtown on a Sunday at all that might be open down there. So we would like to do items like special event brunches, especially when we have opportunities such as Festival of Forks. We know we have a lot of people in town. We have a lot of demand for places to gather and things to do. And we would love to be able to open the doors even an hour or two earlier, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock instead of noon, in order to be able to have that kind of an option available to us. The other thing that we've kind of discussed with the early Sundays is special events or hosting things. So we've had discussions with the BOEM or with classes that want to come back for class reunions and stuff like that, and have asked for to reserve a space to be able to meet. We've taken a stance in the business right now that we're not going to close down to the public during our normal working hours, so we're not going to lock the doors and say private events and process and not allow people in. Being able to open on a Sunday morning would allow us to offer a brunch meeting space. If people are in town for a weekend for a gathering, to say we'd be glad to host a brunch from 9 to noon or something like that. Be able to bring them in and cater in the restaurant and use that space for that type of an event. There's a significant precedence for this around us. Grand River and Jackson has brunches on Sundays. Territorial and Battle Creek. Dark Horse and Marshall opens at 11 o'clock, and I'm sure that Grand River and Marshall will pursue a similar thing when they come in because they do a lot of brunches. Our friends in this industry that are doing these have said that this has been a tremendous boon for the breweries and ends up being a very good business period, just because it is such a unique thing to have a place that's doing kind of a little bit more than a typical diner breakfast, a little bit more than eggs and bacon, to be able to come in and offer a full plated breakfast or a brunch option. So that's about it.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council this evening? Councilmember Spicer.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Wade, you want to be open on Sunday earlier? Is that
Yep.
my understanding?
Yes. We're not allowed to open before noon currently.
And Mayor, can the city attorney speak to, is there state law about that?
So the way that it's the Michigan Liquor Control Code, and it basically says, well, you have the option to allow sales before noon on Sunday or not allow. And right now the city has a citywide ban on early sales on Sundays.
Okay. So one question I have is this a lifting across the board, or would we be opening it to allow every other?
If you choose to allow sales on Sundays, it would be anybody can apply for a license. Now, I'm not saying that all of them would have to be granted, but when you authorize sales on Sunday, so you're authorizing sales on Sunday, period.
Okay.
And my strong recommendation would be anybody that's got an active license right now is probably going to be a good candidate for an early Sunday sales license. So I don't think you're going to be able to pick and choose which one. I mean, as long as they meet the criteria. So yeah, I mean, for all intents and purposes, it's a citywide lift.
Okay.
And if I may, the allowance from the city allows me to apply to the state, the MLCC, to request this as a separate permit. So I have to go through a licensing process with the MLCC in order to get the approval, but they will not allow me to proceed with the application without a city approval.
Okay. Councilmember Brown, Councilmember Spicer.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Mr. Wade, according to your communication that was in our council packet, you stated initially you're not planning to do this every Sunday, just on special occasions at first. Is that my?
Yeah, that's our immediate desire for this is to be able to, again, where we're hosting the bike rides, we're hosting yoga before the brewery, to be able to have options to do that. Whether or not we decide that a weekly brunch is something that we would like to be open for, I think that would be a future contemplation.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Councilmember Spicer.
Thank you. So then, conceivably, you could open at 8 and then start.
The early permit right now is 7 a.m. So 7 a.m. is the normal restriction, whatever's Monday through Saturday of the state. This would bring Sunday into the same rule requirements as the other 6 days of the week.
And this is we're just talking about Sunday here for the purpose. Okay.
And I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I just want to say that to Mr. Wade and his business partners that the exterior facade and the interior of the building is absolutely impressive. And you guys have an enormous presence on the internet. I see a lot of your events posted and food and beer. And I just wonder, I mean, I know you're doing a lot, and I want to do anything I can to help you stay. I know starting a business is hard and difficult the first few years. So anything that we can do, I would like to do. I want to keep you guys in the community. You have a great presence downtown. I just love the building and what you've done to it, so.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I have one question, then I'm going to go to Councilman Reed. You made a comment about, so is there a prohibition on, for example, like you said, selling soda? Is that because the business has a liquor license? Is that what bans that?
We can't be open.
Okay.
Is the way the MLCC is. It's our hours of operation.
Okay. I might go. Okay, Councilman
I
Reed.
think that was my same question. If you are open, then you must sell beer also.
If we cannot be open, the state will not grant us open hours and say you can be open but not sell beer.
So if you're open,
Yeah.
and we're talking
Attorney Harkness, Councilman Brown.
Normally I'd have some really intelligent legal thing to say, but I just want to tell you your steak and cheese sandwich is awesome.
And their bean burger.
Thank you.
Councilman Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. And your black bean burger is great.
to mention the Brown.
Should cater dinner for the council meeting.
That might violate our ethics ordinance if it works.
Okay, so.
I didn't say for free.
So you talked about having to apply for a license with the state. Is it possible for you to do that and get that approved before the festival?
So, that's a great question. MLCC is variable, put it that way, the Michigan Liquor Control. My understanding for these types of add-on permits, now that we're a licensed brewery, is that turnaround time is relatively quick. It's something that's probably 2 or 3 weeks out. I don't know for sure whether or not it would happen for festival this year or not.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions from council? Thank you so much. Appreciate it. We'll move on now to item D under presentations, the after-hour clinic update from Richard Lindsay, Oaklawn Hospital.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, thank you very much for having me tonight. Again, thank you, Councilmember Marcola Lawler, for inviting me. I'm proud to say I'm one of the 5-star ratings on Facebook for the Albion Malville, and they've also been big supporters of Oaklawn events, which I appreciate very much. Basically, since I was here, actually, Dr. Ditzler and our new CEO were here to talk to you last time when we just were announcing the project. Since that time, I provided you with a set of plans as far as what we're doing in the space. Just to orient you, if you take a look, this is the north door. So right now there's a south door that's going to be removed, also a north door. So you'll enter into a common space. The part that's shown in yellow is going to be the after-hours clinic. The rest of the building is going to be essentially what is the doctor's office's portion of the north location. So both of those things will be located there. And what I've highlighted in orange is something that we're really happy about, which is we're going to have radiology here, which I think was mentioned, we were here before, but right now if you are injured and you go in to see a physician in Albion, you have to go to Marshall to get your x-ray done, or to Jackson. So this is something that's going to allow you to actually get the radiology done right there in the office and stay here. So again, allowing us to do diagnostic tests in the office is very important to Oaklawn. We want to basically serve this community and not have to go to another community to be able to access those services. So really excited about that. Last week we got the bids back on the work, and it's about $1.5 million for what's going to be done to build this space out. About another $250,000 for the equipment and the furniture and whatnot. And then the exterior work, we're going to be right at around $2 million investment in this building, so we're really excited about that. Again, about $1.2 million of that comes from state grants. The balance of that comes from Oaklawn's investment in this project. And there's also a $75,000 grant from Cronin Foundation that went to the Albion College, and then a $75,000 grant that came from the Battle Creek Community Foundation to help this happen. We are set to open in January of 2019, and one thing I want to correct, because I keep hearing this around town, this is not just for Albion College students. The whole point of what Albion College is doing with us is to be able to offer the after-hours piece of this. So the big thing that is going to be different is that 5 o'clock to 9 o'clock service from Monday through Friday, and then the Saturday service. And we hope to also, and we think that there will be enough demand to also offer Sunday hours, so we're hopeful that's what's going to take place once we're open, but we just didn't want to agree to that contractually yet until we know what exactly the numbers are going to look like. So things are underway. At some point, I think I'm friends with most of you on Facebook. We're posting pictures on Facebook and on the Oakland page. There's not a lot to see right now. All they've done really is demolition and then saw cut all the concrete and put all those interesting things that these guys know you have to do before you can build up. You have to put the basics in. But we're getting ready to start doing more of the interior work and starting the building in the next couple of weeks. So that is pretty much what's going on right now. Does anybody have any questions about anything?
Just one clarifying question. This is going to be floor, correct? Council Lawler, Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Lindsay, for coming to talk about the project that's on the way. It's very much needed. I've had a couple phone calls asking, well, when is it going to be open? So I think my precinct is really excited about this and having it available to Albion. Can you give us an update about parking? Because I've had a lot of conversation about parking in the collaboration course.
Yes, thank you. And I was going to mention that, so thank you for bringing that up. So we build things back to a little more to be this not being anything with collaboration parking again for the discussions that we had with the city council about that and with city manager as well. At this point, we're working with two handicap accessible parking, van accessible parking spots along Monroe, right? Along Monroe, not any parking. There's lots of in that, and it's really like to walk around the building in the middle of the intersection. So we'll see how that goes. The plan right now is to not do any parking there at all. And there's plenty of parking. It's just an accessibility issue. So that's the plan as of right now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. So Member Lawler asked my question. Thank you. I had a question about parking, and with the plan was there, we had some concern.
Absolutely.
Corner. I also wanted clarity. The after clinic is what available for the community.
It's all available for.
So all day, because I heard you say from 5 to 9, but what you meant is it's going to be open all day. Correct. In addition to the 5 to 9. So
the part that's shown in yellow, you can walk in. That's an after-hours clinic, so you walk in with no appointment. If it's slow, they'll get you in right away. The one in Marshall typically is a 5 to 20-minute wait. If it's during flu season, you're going to wait a little longer, right? It depends on what the demand is. The other one is your typical clinic that you would make an appointment for your doctor and go in and see. So at 5 o'clock, the part that's shown in white will close. The yellow will stay up until 9 o'clock, and that was what my reference was, is that 5 to 9 additional hours.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Spicer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Lindsay, I see here in yellow, I think 1, 2, 3, is that 7, 8 units? Can you basically tell me what you plan to establish here in these different units? Is one for allergy? Can you explain that a little bit?
I'm the lawyer and the community relations person, right? So I'll preface my. I'll say I like the cheesesteak sandwich as well before I tell you what the answer to that question is. So all of these are exam rooms.
All of them are exam rooms.
So because this is drawn so small, you can't see. So obviously this is radiology. This piece right here is basically a lab, so it's accessible from both directions. The rest of them are basically exam rooms. So there's waiting areas here, and then there's a shared office area, and the rest of them are basically exam areas that are set up in various different ways.
Okay, and the hours of operation are 8, what time did you say? 9?
They are going to be 8 until 9 p.m. And then, so 8 to 5 for the regular, and it'll also be open extended hours until 9 o'clock. And then on the weekends as well, on Saturday as well, from 8 to 9.
Well, I don't know if you were or are aware or not, but one of the platforms that I ran on when I ran for this office was exploring the option of having an after-hour clinic in Albion. I know I didn't have one involved in this, but nonetheless, I am glad to see it here, and I thank you.
Well, and let me say that I would like to mention this because we had extremely good working relationship with Albion during the building of the dialysis center, which was about a $3 million project. It's been a really good relationship dealing with the city manager and with the city officials, so this is very much a partnership. And again, so we very much appreciate what you guys are doing as well. So, and again, we appreciate our council member from that district as well. She's been very, very helpful, very accommodating. So it was very much a collaborative effort, so we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lindsay. I appreciate it. The final item under presentations, item E. I'm naming it Lead Task Force, but I'm sure Ms. Gamble can give me the appropriate name. So.
Hello. Thank you for having me. So I have some information for you guys. I wasn't sure if I was officially presenting, so I'm sorry I did not have it passed out for you. Hand that to Jim. So our official name is the Calhoun County Lead Safe Program. We were sort of birthed out of the Lead Task Force, which is a countywide task force that was started in 2015 to explore lead poisoning in children in Calhoun County. One of the things they found out was that there were a really high number of kids that were testing positive in certain areas, Battle Creek, Albion, and Marshall being the highest places, but then also that there was a very low number of kids actually being tested. So that was one of the number one goals of the task force, was to increase testing, and then also to remove lead from homes where kids are testing positive. So if you look at, there's so much information here, but if you look at that information, one of the first things that it talks about is like what lead poisoning actually means, how it can make a kid sick, and what it is that we want to do about it. So what we are doing basically is removing lead from homes where there are children that are on Medicaid, and the house has to be built before 1978. Obviously, it has to be in Calhoun County. We have $1.5 million. The project is slated to last for 5 years. And we typically find, when we think of lead, we think of flint, so we think of water, but we typically find lead more in paint because that's what was used before 1978, especially in nicer homes that are now deteriorating. So we're looking at paint, like aluminum siding that was painted. We're looking at wood siding, actual paint that's all deteriorating, windows, window casings. Those types of things are where we typically see the lead paint. So kids, touch them, put them in their mouth, put their hands in their mouth, and they and what we know is the amount of lead dust that can poison a kid is so small, like you barely can see it. So I have vials. Should have passed them out when I gave you your package, but if you want to see it, I can show them to you. It's so small, like you almost can't even see it. So one of the things that we have to do, having that sheet with the sugar packets in the 10-story building kind of gives you an idea, but if you actually see it in a little vial, it's kind of mind-blowing. So what we also know is that getting the information out to people isn't always the easiest thing. So we've been partnering with different agencies like CISD and partnering with foster care and a couple other agencies. We will be at the Healthy Babies Fair, so that's going to be pretty cool. But, I mean, it doesn't cost anyone anything. It doesn't cost a landlord anything. It doesn't cost a homeowner anything. If someone's renting, we can still work in their home. We have 3 projects that are slated to start within the next 2 weeks here in Albion. I can't give you the addresses because of HIPAA, but you'll see some of those things going on, and you'll see the difference. There's pictures in there that show you the difference in just the aesthetics of a home, but at the end of the day, it's all about, keeping babies from being sick. Our target population is children under 6 that are in certain target areas. So one of the sheets, I think it's your second sheet, kind of shows you a green outline or highlighted space specifically in Albion. Don't pay attention to the dots. Those are old addresses. But what that shows you are the target area for Albion where the highest population of homes built before 78 are. And what we also know is that Albion has 95% of its housing stock that was built before 78. So there's quite a bit of work that can be done here. And with all the other things that are going on, so obviously we're helping with the health of children, with lead poisoning mimicking ADHD. We know the path that some of those kids can be led down when they are diagnosed with ADHD, often inappropriately. But we also know that we are doing big things in building up our community. So a lot of the spaces where those houses are located are in spaces that have a lot of blighted homes. So we're kind of trying to do both of those things at the same time. I think that's all I have. So do you guys have any questions for me?
Councilmember Lawler.
Thank you, Mayor. So one of the things I would like to ask, because I see that my precinct is affected by this, is how can I get information to some of the streets or the areas out into my precinct?
So what we've been doing initially is I get a list of all the kids in the county that have tested positive for lead poisoning. So that means that they have a lead level of 5 or above. I send them an application, I send them a letter, giving them a spiel about what we have to offer. You have an application in that packet, and you also have an eligibility form in there, so you can see exactly what it is that is required to be eligible. And you most certainly can make copies of that and give it to anyone you think might be eligible in or outside of your precinct. But it is in your packet.
Okay. And this is for just children, not elderly or anything?
No.
Okay.
So they would have to be 19 and under, and they have to be enrolled in Medicaid.
Okay.
So, Councilmember Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Gamble, so say a child spends 50% of their time in one home and 50% in the other. Would both homes be eligible for?
Yes. So we call it grandma's house. Because there's a lot of times, grandma might babysit. So if mom, let's say, lives in Broadwell Projects, which wouldn't qualify because it's HUD housing, but grandma has her own house, we definitely could go look at grandma's house, find out if there's lead in there, and get the lead out of the house, for sure.
And I guess an additional question, I know rental properties are big. Is there any technicalities if you're not the homeowner, if you're renting the property? Have you run into those situations?
So, no, technically no. The only thing that we have had is sometimes landlords get nervous when they hear about lead. But usually, I've been able to convince them that there's really no harm for them because legally they have to do something about it once they know that there's lead in the home. And legally they also cannot evict a tenant based on a child being lead poisoned in their home. So we do have help from the state of enforcing certain lead laws, but typically once we talk to them about the fact that they're going to have to do something anyway and that we're paying for it for free, they are more than willing to work with us to make sure that the lead's out of the house. So,
Councilmember Spicer, Councilmember Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you, Mrs. Campbell, briefly summarize, explain what is involved in removing lead from households?
Okay. So we typically start with an elevated child, which they call it an EBL. So once we have that test and we get the application back from the parent or the guardian, we go into their home and we check the house out. They do specs and they see like how many windows are in the house, what the layout of the house is, and then we actually do a lead inspection, risk assessment, or a LIRA. So that's when they go in with X-ray guns, X-ray fluorescent, I believe they're called. We call them XRFs. And they test every surface of the home. They test the water, and they also test the soil. Because what we know is if there's paint outside of the house and it's deteriorated, it gets into the soil, it doesn't go anywhere. So once the LIRA is done, then the assessors create specifications that they give to the contractor. So the specifications say, this is what we need done in the house. We need these windows removed, they need to have siding, carpet needs to be replaced, whatever. And then the contractors bid on that, and we take the lowest responsible bid. And then the contractors work with the homeowners on starting, or the resident on starting a process on getting their house abated. So what we also know is sometimes it can be a pretty long process, and because they're doing a lot of disturbing of surfaces, residents might have to be out of their home.
If it's a short period of time, like 1 to 2 days, we ask that they find a family or friend to stay with for those couple of days. But if that's not possible, we actually will pay for relocation for them, typically in a hotel for however long it takes, up to 10 days.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Brown?
Thank you, Mayor. So, Ms. Gamble, if I'm a renter and I have small children in my home who are on Medicaid, and I contact you for lead testing, at what point does the landlord get involved? Or how does that work?
So the application itself has permission for us to contact the landlord, and I send them an authorization form. They also get a copy of the lead inspection risk assessment, and then the specifications and the final clearances that are done for the project itself. So the resident cannot go back into the house until the house has been cleared. And then those final clearances have to be kept, and they have to be sent to the state and things like that. So the homeowner would get a copy of that information also.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
Councilmember Spicer.
Thank you, Mayor. Just another quick question. Are you surprised or not with, because I suspect that in Albion, a lot of the homes built before some of their time probably has that. So, you look at our
because I didn't know. But in the moment where we have a lot of, even in Marshall, the homes that were built before 78, the maintenance is a little bit different, but the reality is that if, even if I maintain my home and I go into my home and I try to, build an addition, I'm disturbing that wall, and I could just as easily put my child as I could from a home that's deteriorated because of income issues. So, I was surprised. Like I said, the more I get into it, the more I'm not, because it just makes sense.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions? Well, thank you for this information, and hopefully we can, the clerk has a copy. Hopefully we can share that through the city website and
Thank you for
online.
having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to public hearings. We'll do these separately. So we're opening up the public hearing on the sale of city-owned property located at 1104 Industrial Ave. We're opening up that public hearing. Are there any public comments on the sale of that property? If so, please come forward and state your name and address. Okay. Public hearing. And then we'll go to public hearing B, approval of sale of city-owned property located at 1104 Industrial Avenue to Sinclair Designs and Engineering. Is there a
So moved.
second?
Support.
Okay. We've heard presentation from the owner regarding the property. Is there any further discussion?
Amy, do you want to say anything about EDC's perspective of this?
I can. The only thing I'd have to say, I may be praised with the EDC. If you don't know that, you should. The only thing I'll say is from the time that I first met with the company, what they're doing there is an extremely heavy process. It would take a lot of time and money to relocate them. So from my point and my perspective, we haven't used the incubator the way, we haven't had a lot of tenants looking to use that space. However, they have on their ability to use the space to their hand, and they are using the space now. We support this. I recommended support to our manager and would the board would support it also. Is there any questions that I can help answer?
Okay. Interim Manager Kip.
One of the things that we talked about in this is that this building initially we thought was owned by the EDC, and it would have been their decision to make. Through research on it, it was found that the city actually owned this property. One of the suggestions in the conversations that I had made was possibly setting this money aside rather than just rolling it into the general fund, so that we may be able to use this money at a later date to build a new incubator building for the EDC out there in the industrial park. So that would just be my other suggestion on this, is that maybe the money that we profit off of the sale of the property being turned back over into an account just for the building of a new incubator building.
One last question, because this just popped in my mind. There was a loan to repair the roof a number of years ago. Do we know? Because I think the EDC wrote that. You know. Okay. Is there any further comment from council? Okay. Seeing none, I'd ask for a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Reed,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Lawler,
Yes.
Spicer,
Yes.
and Mayor Brown.
Yes. Public comments, persons addressing the city council, we ask that you limit your comments to agenda items only and to no more than 3 minutes, and that you observe proper decorum. Are there any public comments on the agenda this evening? Please come forward, state your name and address. Is there any public comments on the agenda? Okay. Seeing none, we will move on to the consent calendar for approval of the various minutes indicated on the agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed? Okay, we've approved the items under the consent calendar. We also approved the sale of the property earlier under public hearings to Sinclair Designs and Engineering. Items for individual discussion. Request approval for early Sunday sales permit for Albion Malleable Brewing Company.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. One question, should that should just be a general policy revision, because it's not.
Well, so, I mean, really, it's a broader thing. It's going to
Yeah.
be whether or not the council does a resolution to allow Sunday sales for, in this case, beer and wine.
Okay. And do we have any say-so in, 'cause I know that Mr. Wade mentioned that the state has a best practice in 7 a.m. So do we relinquish any?
It doesn't give us, it's not like we can say 9 to noon.
Okay.
It's just, you either allow Sunday sales from 7 to noon or you don't.
Okay. Councilmember Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. Attorney Harkness, so at some point in time, hypothetically, say this just does not seem to be working out in the best interest of downtown or the city, can council revoke this approval?
I think you can revoke the approval, but I think if that were to come up, it would have to be done with a lot of caution, because any businesses that are operating with that Sunday license and are relying on that Sunday license, there could be some liability there.
So I'm assuming there'd have to be. I'm sorry. Do you yield for one moment?
No. Yeah. Sure.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
So I'm assuming that, like, if there was some kind of spike in public disturbance on Sunday mornings, a compelling reason.
It would have to be compelling, but I'm just saying. I mean, it's like anything else when you authorize something and then take it away. I mean, it's not without potential repercussion, but yes, it is possible.
Councilmember Spicer, Councilmember Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. Attorney Harkness, you mentioned a resolution. So if, for example, this request is approved by the council tonight, then could Mr. Wade leave here and go and do what he needs to do, or does he need to wait until we approve a resolution?
I think realistically what has to happen, because right now Liquor Control Commission has, as part of their records, that the city, and I don't know what year they did it, because I think we've looked in the past and we couldn't.
It was early. That was probably early in my tenure.
It was a while ago. Did a resolution and sent it to Liquor Control Commission banning sales. So we're going to have to do a resolution allowing for sales on Sunday, and in addition to whatever paperwork that Mr. Wade is going to need for approval of his individual permit. So, I mean, we're gonna need to through a resolution, put the Liquor Control Commission on notice that we're allowing the Sunday sales.
Okay.
So chances are, this will not be approved before the festival, the 4th. Right.
When is festival?
The 22nd.
Everybody knows when the festival is.
Nobody tells the attorney anything, I mean, we can put it on for the, what would that be? It'd be the 3rd plus 14, it'd be the 17th is the next regular meeting.
Okay. Councilman Brown?
Thank you, Mayor. So could we throw this on when we're doing city attorney interviews, or would that not be appropriate? That Saturday, we could just vote that resolution in?
To the city manager?
The interviews?
For manager?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm just asking, but that really wasn't my main question. My main question was, so I know what our agenda says, but what we're approving actually is to allow any business with a liquor license to operate on Sunday before noon. So this would apply to, say, for instance, Charlie's, Cascarelli's, or any of those businesses, correct?
Only if they apply to sell on Sundays. They don't automatically have the Sunday sales. They would have to get that additional.
Through the state?
Well, yes.
Okay, what about liquor stores?
Well, that was my question.
I would have, okay. The Liquor Control Commission code, the liquor code reads like stereo instructions in Mandarin Chinese, but I think it makes a distinction between beer and wine sales on Sunday and what's referred to as spirits sales on Sundays. And I believe, and I'm fairly certain of this, I believe they're two separate things. So I think you can authorize beer and wine sales on Sundays while limiting sales of spirits.
The party store, they close on Sunday.
So, that being said, if somebody wanted, for example, a retail store wanted to sell beer and also happened to sell bottles of alcohol, they could sell one on Sunday but not the other.
Thank you.
Okay.
I think.
Well, and I think so. One thing I want to say is that I wholeheartedly support Albion Brewing Company. I think right now we're just trying to figure out the specifics of how it works as a policy decision, because that was a question that I had. Because I have frequented the brewery, but then me individually I don't drink, and so that question I had was, for example, if you had let's say 3 different entities. You had a brewery with a restaurant. You had let's say a convenience gas station that sold alcohol, and then you had, let's say, just almost like a party store that was selling a wide variety. And what you're saying is there's a distinction between the brewery and the selling beer. That's different than let's say a gas station that's selling alcohol versus a.
That's a lot of different things.
Yeah.
One question. So there's various different licenses under the Liquor Control Code.
Okay.
I mean, there's brew pub, there's manufacturers, retail, whatever.
Okay.
What you're talking about in a general sense is whether or not any of them can sell beer and wine or spirits during that early window of time on Sundays. So if you're going to allow, for example, beer and wine to be sold between 7 a.m. and noon on Sunday, hypothetically, anybody that's selling beer and wine, whether it's from a tap or cases of cans, could apply for that Sunday permit for that extra period of time.
Okay. So any further questions? So then just from a procedural thing, if we vote to approve this now, we're just authorizing you to create a resolution because we don't have the text.
Yeah, I mean, in reality, we're going to have to do a resolution and then we're going to have to send that to Liquor Control, is my understanding of how it's going to work. Okay. I'm just looking at, it's section 2111 of the Liquor Control Code.
Okay.
Says that the sale of beer and wine between the hours of 7 a.m. on Sunday a county, city, village, or township may prohibit the sale of beer and wine between the hours of 7 a.m. and noon on Sunday by majority vote of the legislative body voting on a resolution to make such, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So basically, you just have to vote to do a resolution to rescind the prohibition and allow for the sale of beer and wine between the hours of 12 and noon on Sunday.
Okay. Councilmember Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. So, in an effort to support the brewery, I know he listed specifically in this communication that the festival was one of the weekends they were really aiming to do something. So I guess my question is, how do we, once we take the vote, and if it's approved, how do we speed up this process as to not hinder what he's trying to get from the state so he can use it festival weekend?
So, I mean, in terms of once you approve the resolution, I mean, I can FedEx it, overnight it to liquor control the next day, but, and then I think in reality, I don't know that I don't have it in front of me, but not every liquor permit needs council approval. Some of them just need the chief of public safety's approval. So I guess my thought is you can vote to approve this tonight, and there'd already be the city approval there. And then on the same token, Scott can approve anything that requires chief of public safety. And then once the resolution is voted on by council, I can overnight it to the Liquor Control Commission.
Okay. And they probably could do, I'm sure there's probably like a special use. Don't we do individual permits sometimes like that as well? For just like a special license? Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, are there any further questions? Okay. So I'll just entertain, just for the record, is there a motion to just amend this so that it's acknowledging the fact that it's not just an individual business, this is a citywide policy? Do I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion on that amendment? Okay, all those in favor say yes?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So we're working under the assumption that this is,
No.
okay. So we'll do a roll call vote if you're asking, if you're voting no. So we'll do a roll call vote on that.
What are you roll call?
Well, this is just,
And the amendment?
The original motion.
yeah, we're just amending the motion to make it clear that it's a citywide.
Okay, so now you're doing the actual approval.
No, well,
No, what are you doing now?
there was an amendment to not make it specific just to the brewing company because this is a citywide policy.
Right,
So
which
just to
you just
clarify for the record. And so what we're doing, because there was a division there, I'm going to do a roll call vote because usually we do amendments like voice vote. So I have a roll call vote so that can be noted.
Councilmember Reed?
No.
Brown?
Yes.
Lawler?
Yes.
Spicer?
Yes.
And Mayor Brown?
Yes. So that amendment is approved. So we're back to the main amendment, a main motion that has been amended to acknowledge that this is a citywide policy. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Okay. Seeing no further discussion, I'd ask for a roll. Huh? Councilman Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. Is Attorney Harkness, is this license that's applied for a state level something that has to be applied for every year? Is this an annual thing or?
I mean, their state license, that I would honestly defer to Mr. Wade. He might know better than I can look it up. I mean, I would assume it's an annual license.
Yeah, if you just come to briefly to answer that question. Thank you.
We have to do an annual update to our existing license. It's not an exact application. Permits, we have to basically check box on our state application every year when we resubmit that these are the list of permits that we will continue. It's not really a new approval per se by MLCC, but there's an annual process that we have to resubmit our forms to acknowledge which licenses and permits we have and make any changes at that point.
Do you need the city to approve this every year when you do that?
No.
Or this is just a one-time thing?
No.
And-
This is a policy.
That's just a form to the MLCC.
Okay, thank you. So I guess for you, I'm sorry, and then I'm.
Oh, because
Okay.
I was just going to say, the city does have the authority, though, to talk to the Liquor Commission on a yearly basis about those licenses, and if we have issues, we can express that, and they've also can deny license renewals as a result of that.
So in the instance when we had someone who didn't pay their personal property taxes.
Right.
Okay, thank you, that's what you know me.
Okay. Okay, seeing no further discussion, we're voting on the change in this policy. This is citywide, so it's not just applicable to the brewery, but it's a citywide policy. I'll ask for a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Lawler,
Yes.
Spicer,
Yes.
Reed,
No.
and Mayor Brown.
Yes. That motion, item A, was approved as amended. Item B, request approval for the medical marijuana growers license for 1100 Industrial Ave. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
Is John here? Oh, you were here. You were there. Okay.
So, the first one that you have before you is, as the mayor just said, a grower's license for 1100 industrial. This is one of, I can't even tell you how many applications we've had over the past few months. All of the department heads have gone through everything. I think we worked with the company. There were several rounds of supplemental information that we needed to get, but we've got it. All the departments have signed off on it. So the planning commission approved it. Looks like 8/21, and we're recommending council approval.
Is there any discussion? So I do have one question. It's going to, in planning commission. That might be an administrative thing. We might have to look at there were some concerns about. You've had that? Okay.
Yep. Dealt with.
Okay, excellent. Is there any further discussion? So this, I know that the last thing I can say is we approved a set number of licenses.
Correct.
I think it was like 20, correct?
Right.
Okay.
And I think in speaking with the clerk, that actually came up, we're assuming all of them that we currently have to approve were around 14-ish.
So there were 6 from, I want to say Green, the former.
The first one approves, yeah.
Okay, and so this would just be.
These are, you've got one for a grower, and your next agenda item is another one for a process.
That brings it to 8.
Yep.
And then we'll just, whatever's in the works.
You've got several that are going to go to planning commission in the next meeting.
Okay.
And this would be the High Colors building that's out there in the industrial park right now at the corner of Industrial and Bernstein.
And then also we restricted the provisioning center dispensary thing to 2.
Correct.
But we haven't had any, I don't know if
We've had one application one that is ready to go to planning. The other one is just in the beginning stages.
Okay. Okay. Is there any, Councilmember Spicer?
Thank you. One quick question, Mayor, or Attorney Harkness.
Yes.
So the Planning Commission has approved this for license for the 1100 industrial?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there any, Councilmember Brown?
Thank you, Mayor. Was that a unanimous vote from planning, or?
I believe so.
That I don't know. I just know it was approved. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Okay, so we'll have a roll call vote on this.
Councilmember Lawler,
Yes.
Spicer,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
and Mayor Brown.
Yes, we've approved the issuance of a license for growing to this company. And then item C, request approval for medical marijuana processor's license for the same company. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, seeing no further discussion, I'd ask for a roll call vote, please. Clerk Domingo.
Councilmember Spicer,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Lawler,
Yes.
and Mayor Brown.
Yes. Item D, discuss approval of road easement for 409 West Ash Street. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Support.
Okay. Is there any discussion?
This easement would be the easement that's runs on the east side of the Dalrymple School property. I would be somewhat concerned at this point of selling that property, only for the mere fact that if there were to be any development to the property, it would be difficult to access from the opposite side. You'd pretty much take out that whole block from being able to be accessed. So, and that property is City of Albion owned property, or will be shortly. So,
Councilman Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. What do you mean will be shortly?
we have an agreement with the county to purchase that property.
I thought they'd already turned it
We
over.
haven't gone through the whole process yet.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they've just been busy and haven't gotten to that yet. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah. We were waiting on SME to do test of the soil, and for their final report, and the land bank just hasn't gotten around to doing the title work on it yet. So
We went back and forth several times about the regarding the environmental conditions too.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Good property line.
road easement on both sides of it. I don't know why it's quite that hard, but it's not awful long.
So I guess can you restate in a different way you're concerned about the sale of that?
If you sell the road easement that's available, then the city, if you were to develop that property, there would be no access to the property, to parts of that property on the east side. Because there's the houses that run along Pearl Street, I believe it is over there, wouldn't allow you access back to that property. It also doesn't give you access to the land that's further back as well.
Okay. Councilmember Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. So if a developer wanted that property, they basically would have to try to buy it if we chose to sell it, right?
Correct.
Which, I mean, would it be an option to, okay, so I mean, it's, I understand your point and it's well taken. But just going a step further, for me, because I know Mr. Tobin has been constantly asking about this property. When I first was elected to my seat, he approached me about it, and I tried to work, you know, on getting this to be available for him, and he's been patiently waiting. And he's brought it up again recently, so I want to support him in obtaining this. I just, like I said, I take your point, but if a developer buys that property and realizes they want that, they'll just have to pay him for it.
But it could also keep that property from being developed.
Well, you know, and it's hypothetical, and I do respect that, but, you know, we have someone interested in it now, or?
Well, no, there's no interest in the property that I'm aware of.
So the one thing I'll say, so I've been on council actually the longest year. I'm sorry, Councilman Spicer, I'm gonna go. Okay. So I guess there was interest expressed even before, before the demolition. So then, I guess I don't. So like I said, I'm looking on Google Maps too. So basically, the concern is that we have this large parcel. Oops, there. I'm sorry, everyone can't see this, but I'm just looking at the old.
Yeah.
Put it on the screen.
Oh, okay. Should we use the county GIS one?
I can bring that up.
Oh, okay. Thank you for your patience.
So this is the property right here.
Can you zoom in just a little bit more?
At the end of Ann Street. If you sell this property, that would be a road easement that goes all the way down through here.
It doesn't.
Well, there's other properties, parcels that are all city-owned.
Just one second.
And the same difference here, if this were to ever to be developed into homes, you don't have roads on either side of it to be able to develop that property at all if you give away the easement that allows you access back to that property.
But you're not, so the easement, okay, so is the easement, we're not talking about the entire easement from Erie to Mechanic though, right?
Well, that property is all, John's not here to explain the parcels on it. I don't know how it's parceled out.
Okay.
But I believe all that property will be in the city's hands at some point.
Okay.
I'm not saying do this or don't do this. I'm just expressing the issue that you could have in the future when it comes to future land development. In the city trying to sell its property.
Okay. Councilmember Spicer, Councilmember Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Attorney Harkness, can you speak to what options we may have legally, from a legal standpoint, with regard to this property, if your recommendation? I guess that's what I'm asking for.
Well, to a certain extent, I wish John was here to explain, because he is the better person as it relates to how vacating the easement would affect parcel access. I mean, but I can tell you this. I mean, if you're going to vacate the easement and sell it, I mean, you're effectively giving up control of the property. I mean, and if it was to be later developed, I mean, what Scott is saying is true. The developer would have to come and try to buy the property back from whoever you sell it to. Now, I mean, you can build in as a term of the sale, like a right of first refusal, and then it would have to come back to the city. But it's really what it comes down to is whether or not you want to vacate the easement, or you want to hang on to it in case the property gets developed. I mean,
So
I know that's not a lot of help, but I mean, legally, I mean, if you sell it, I mean, you are going to give up control over a certain portion of access to that parcel. But who's to say that parcel ever does get developed? I mean, it may not. And I can see why that particular section of property is of interest and benefit to the existing homeowner that's adjacent to the property. So I mean, the council just needs to balance, I think, what they determine to be more important.
So I pulled up the GIS for the county. So the area, let's say, from where Dalrymple School used to be to where the vegetation's growth is up to, it's like a tree line right by Little Lambs of Jesus. So that is still in the County Treasurer's ownership, and so hopefully that'll come back to us. But then the area, there's like a middle area it's like surrounded by Mechanic and Eaton and Elm and Ash. That whole middle part is under private ownership already, right? So what I'm trying to figure out is just, at least from the county GIS system, so that's his property. So how is that parceled? Because like I said, everything south of it is already privately owned anyway.
But you would be effectively then landlocking that property behind there because there is no access that I'm aware of.
Well, on Elm Street though. Right there. Or Pearl Street, excuse me.
Okay. So there's another access.
Yeah. Councilmember Spicer.
Can we
I'd like to.
Can you see, is that close enough? So basically, what I'm saying is this is the old, I don't know, school right here that was demolished. This is the property of the individual who's requesting the purchase of the right-of-way. This area right here is this section right here, which is not kind of coming up because it's a right-of-way. And then this is this large land back here that's circled in red is the actual private ownership. So theoretically, you could extend the street from here all the way down. You know, some houses there, but you can't do that. But it's on Mechanic Street. So once the city purchases or finalizes the purchase with the treasurer, we'll own this land basically again where the old Irumpa was, in the kind of green area here. This red area right here is Little Lambs of Jesus. So what we're talking about is again this space basically right here. And this is going to be owned by us, the city, and this is already owned in private ownership.
Mayor.
Councilmember Spicer, information.
Thank you. Attorney Harkness, you mentioned that there could be a condition on the sale of right of first refusal. Can you speak to that quickly?
So what that is in the event, like, for example, if we were to sell this to a private owner, and then the private owner were to desire themselves, our first refusal would mean that they would have to us first.
Thank you.
And if I could just add another suggestion, I'm not sure what the owner wants to do with the property, but maybe it's possible for the city, rather than to sell the property, to lease it to that person to use for $1 a year, just so they've got control of it, they can do what they want with it other than building on it. And that way, if it does come to where we need it, we can stop the lease and use it for what we need to use it for.
Councilor Rowe.
Thank you. Can we hear the plan is? We let Mr. Wade come up about the brewery and answer questions.
Go ahead.
Thank you. My original plan was just to add it to our personal property. As you can see by in the picture, we have a camper there. It's easier access off of the end of Ann Street there. There's already a double apron where the road is already cut there. And so it's easier. It's a flat access where my driveway is pitched up. It has a pitch to it, so it makes it really hard for a low-lying, older model 1980s camper to go out of the driveway. And also to serve as a buffer between whatever actually goes in there. We bought the specific property. As if you look behind us, what do you not see behind us?
You have to tell me because
we don't see any houses behind me. You know, you don't see any houses to the west until you get to Grandview. You can they're off. It's to provide that buffer for us. We wanted a little extra land to provide a buffer for us. We've been trying to get this property since 2013. We've made several requests to the city. Various individuals had agreed to it, and then those individuals were no longer here anymore, and so it's gone through a progression. And then, so speaking to we're talking about a half a block here, so it's not a huge entrance, and you can still get to the property off of Ash Street if you extended Ash Street across to Dalrymple. So if you're going to put houses in there, and to date, prior to my making any interest into that particular piece of property, there's been no interest. All attempts prior to me even coming to Albion have failed. So, it's not, right now the city spends money mowing it, where I'm willing to put it onto the tax rolls to make it a beneficial property to the city. Instead of being an expense, I'm turning it into a revenue for the city. And a little curve of a driveway to get, you can't put another row of houses in there because you need a full block.
So one question, thank you, do you have any future?
I mean, I can show you, I mean, for everybody in the audience, it ends right here.
Yeah.
It does not go the full length of that property down.
Okay.
So you still lose that access.
So-
That access has already been lost a long time.
So the question I have is Attorney Harkness' question. So we've had our first reading of the sale of city-owned property, and one of the things that was I remember from that discussion regarding that ordinance was the issue of parcels that were weird, oddly shaped, just parcels that are basically scraps.
Correct.
Okay. Is this falling in that category to you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's a small square. The way the way that the language of the ordinance reads in a very general sense is, if the parcel that's sold is of such a special shape that it realistically only would be of value to the adjacent property owner, the city can dispense with the normal bidding process and whatnot and sell it to that adjacent parcel owner.
Okay. Okay. Is there any other discussion? If I would entertain. I can't remember which council member mentioned putting a clause in there or stipulation that we'd have first right of refusal if it was sold. But that's possible to do. Or would that modify what he put
so
before?
adding that is a counter offer to the offer.
Okay.
So there'd have to be acceptance of that additional term.
Okay. Could we approve it with that, and then contingent on the interested party accepting?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Councilman Reed.
It seems like to me anybody who's going to build anything on that piece of land anyway is going to come in from Dalrymple Street. I don't think that they're going to try to get down that little edge and get into the property. They're going to either come in Dalrymple Street, like when the school was there, the entrance to the parking lot of the school was from Dalrymple Street.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Spicer and Councilmember Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't know what is required. You mentioned it. I think that we could move forward if there was a condition of the city having right of first refusal.
Are you asking that as an amendment?
I'm asking as an amendment.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion? This would modify the main motion that's already had a first support and second to add that the city would have right of first refusal if it was ever sold. Is there any discussion? Okay. All those in favor say yes?
Yes.
Yes. Any opposed?
I oppose.
To the right?
I oppose.
Oh, okay. So we will, I guess we have to do a roll call real quick on that amendment.
Councilmember Spicer?
Yes.
Reed?
No.
Brown?
No.
Lawler?
Yes.
And Mayor Brown?
Yes. That amendment fails. It didn't reach 4 votes. So we're back to the main amendment, the main motion. Just for clarity, would as a friendly request, is there a particular reason why? Councilman Brown.
Thank you. Because he's been trying to get this long before Dalrymple was even demolished. You've already pointed out yourself that there's another entryway off of Elm Street. Ms. Reed talked about Dalrymple. I feel like we have no known express interest in even developing that property. And if somebody comes in and wants it, then guess what? They can pay for it if they really want it. I feel like he's been more than patient in trying to obtain this. It's a small space, and I'm ready to just get it off the tax rolls and move forward. So that's
On the
my
tax
reasoning.
rolls.
Well, you know what I mean.
Yeah. Is there any further discussion or any other amendments? Okay, so what's on the floor right now is just a main motion to authorize the sale of that property under the terms that the interested party put before the city. Is there any further discussion? Okay. Seeing none, I'd ask for a roll call vote.
Councilmember Reed,
Just the sale of the property.
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Lawler,
Yes.
Spicer,
Yes.
and Mayor Brown.
Yes. We've approved the sale of 409 West Ash Street, the easement there. Item E, request approval for $7,086.05 for emergency generator repair for lift station at Rieger Park. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Jim is not.
Yeah, Jim couldn't make it here tonight.
Okay.
This is the same thing that we approved a week ago, or 2 weeks ago. We had a pump go out in one of the lift stations. We had to get it repaired so the lift station was working.
Okay. Seeing no further discussion, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Lawler,
Yes.
Spicer,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
and Mayor Brown.
Yes. Item F, request approval of letter of understanding with the between the City of Albion and the Police Officers Association of Michigan and the Albion Command Officers Association. These are the two for PTO time changes to the contract. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Do you want to?
Since 2013, all new public safety officers that have been hired are under PTO time instead of a separate sick and vacation bank. And that has left us with a few officers that are still just having the vacation and the sick bank that have been here longer than that. The Command Officers Association in the last union negotiations agreed to the PTO time and went to the PTO time. Since then, the Officers Association did not agree to that, but they only had 2 members that still had sick and vacation time, and those 2 members didn't want to change. Since that time, I've had a command officer go back to that union bargaining unit, and they'd already transferred everything to PTO time, and they would like to keep their time as PTO time. So this is just a letter of understanding, basically, so that the remaining 3 people that are involved have the opportunity to go to PTO time instead of having the separate sick vacation bank.
Is there any discussion from council? And this would just be an amendment of the contract, and it expires.
It expires when the contract expires. I think it was a 3-year contract.
Okay.
And so it would have to be negotiated at that point.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Okay. Seeing none, I'd ask for a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Lawler,
Yes.
Spicer,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
and Mayor Brown.
Yes. Item G, request approval of bid for Ash Street parking lot improvements, a project to Mead Brothers for $127,756.50. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
So, this is the parking lot behind the brewery, but we applied for a USDA grant. We only received half of it, right?
Right.
And then we basically had to up cause I think it went from like 18,000 up to
60,000.
Yeah, something like that. So, are we still only doing? So, I guess my question is: are we still only doing the 60, or do we have to do a little bit more? Because you know, once you finally get the final numbers.
I don't know exactly what those numbers were. Sorry.
Councilmember Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. So basically, I think the question is, are we paying more than what we agreed to pay previously?
Right.
And
I don't know what you agreed to pay previously. So
I thought it was 50, and then the mayor just said 60. So
I want to say
it was 60
something
yeah.
like 60. I was going to say 65.
And usually these grants are 45-55 splits.
Yeah, because
USDA grants are usually 45-55 splits, because when we get them for patrol cars, that's what they are. We
Okay.
pay 45%.
Yeah, I just remember the initial thing, 'cause that's when we had a special meeting for that, and it was $18,000. And then I remember when it came back, they said we either could take half of it, because it was a conversation we had in the DDA. And so we could either pay half, or we could just wait till the next cycle of grant applications and try to go for the entire funds again. I just want to make sure that we're not, if we said 60 or 65, we're not actually ended up putting in, like 70 or 80. Attorney Harkness?
Just to let you know, I just did the math. 45% of the 127 is 57.5.
Okay.
So you're pretty close, around 60 there.
Okay. Is there a time limit on this?
There is, because it's already gone out to bid, and they were trying to get this construction work done before winter.
Okay.
So,
Councilmember Spicer, Councilmember Brown.
Thank you. Well, Mayor, I would like a definite number.
They have a.
Good. Find that out.
Yeah, we have the breakdown from the engineer. So our engineer provided the two bid amounts. We got the lower one. I'm just trying to make sure. Yeah, like what?
half is 63.
Yeah.
63,878.
What is the number? I'm sorry, Mayor.
What'd you say?
What is the number? Did you give me a?
So the total project is the 127,75650, and then you were saying the breakdown was like a 60-40?
Half of it is 63,878. Usually USDA grants, from my experience in them, are 45-55 splits. Okay. And so the 45 was the 58 that the Attorney Harkness stated.
So we excuse me.
Councilmember Spicer, quick.
So we would either be paying the 45 or the 63 somewhere.
It is in the range.
It's 45%.
45%.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So which would be.
Which is 57.5.
So 57.5. Okay, so that would be our portion. Is that what you're saying?
Mm-hmm. Approximately.
Okay.
Councilmember Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. So if normally the grants are a 55-45% split, why did we initially go into this thinking we were only paying $18,000?
Just because basically,
they submitted it for a different. You can submit it for different splits, but that's not what they always do. In my experience with USDA is with grants on our patrol cars, we've submitted them for only paying 20% or paying 10%. But every time we've done that, they've said, no, we're only going to do a 45-55 split with you. So I think that's where that all got turned around on us before.
it is within the range, because even with that 45 split, my memory was around 60 something.
Right, and
which
that's
was
my
like
memory
half.
too, was 60 something.
Councilmember Brown.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So, we've taken steps to get us up to this point thus far. And I know, this is a chunk of money, 60, 50, 60, whatever the city's match is. And I'm just hoping that we're thinking of ways to recoup some of this money from this project. So, we're talking about a parking lot. And I understand it's important to fix this in order to keep the brewery from getting damage, water damage or something. So I understand the urgency and the importance of it, but I also want us to be thinking about ways that we can recoup this money that we're spending. So that was my comment.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Okay. We'll do a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Spicer?
Yes.
Reed? Yes. Brown?
Yes.
Baller?
Yes.
And Mayor Brown?
Yes, we've approved the parking lot improvements for the Ash Street parking lot. Are there any future agenda items? Councilmember Spicer, Councilmember Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. I had a couple of calls about the street in Albion. And I also have a concern with regard to the construction. Some of the streets are, because of the traffic and because of the downtown development and all that, some of the streets are in a bad state. And I was just wondering, is there any way that we could, through Project Rising Tide or just asking the state to help us with those street repairs? Because Clinton is terrible, and so is, I think it's Center, and one lady called today and said that traffic was rerouted to Clark Street and that South Clark, and that there's a bunch of holes in the streets in disrepair because of that. So I guess I just need this as the city manager to check into it, if it's a possibility that they could provide some funds or help us in repairing that, because I think it was their responsibility because some of those streets are in the condition that they are. I mean, they caused it, is what I'm saying.
Okay. Are there any other, Councilor Brown?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm wondering if we could get a consensus of council and possibly reach out to the Housing Commission for a joint meeting between council and the Housing Commission board. I've had a few residents in Precinct 3 reach out to me with some, what sound like to me valid concerns. So I'm wondering if we could schedule that to have an open dialogue and maybe address and fix, hopefully, some of the issues.
I'm not opposed to do that a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, we can reach out. So, are there any other future agenda items? Okay. We'll move on now to the motion to accuse council. Council members receive communication from both council members French Barnes. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
Okay. All those in favor say yes? Yes. Okay. Public comment. Persons addressing City Council. We ask that you limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes. We ask that you observe proper decorum and put your name and address of any public comment this evening in general.
I just thank you for the council and thank you.
Further comment? Okay. Mayor and council member comments. Today was first day of school in Michigan. Saw Councilmember Reed at Harrington this morning, so I want to thank the community members who came out to support the students there. I think else the street will be open by
the end of the week,
hopefully
weather permitting.
Yes, weather permitting. Superior Street will be open by the end of the week. So we want to thank the residents for your patience. I think that's it right now. I'm sorry. Do you? Okay, so I'm just going to take a privilege here and ask that our County Commissioner Gary Tompkins come forward. Sorry about that.
No, you're fine. That's completely correct. Absolutely. Mr. Mayor, council members, Interim Manager Kip, Clerk Domingo, residents of the City of Albion, and folks watching tonight, good evening. My name is Gary Tompkins. I'm your County Commissioner, and you're totally okay with that. It's not a problem. I just enjoying the evening. A lot of good things going on, certainly, at your meeting tonight. First of all, to be real quickly, talking about the Superior Street downtown, very lucky that I see that I got about 3 feet remaining, if you will. As you well know, that the transportation lockout, and some of you might have heard about that regarding some of the state and federal projects going on between the Michigan Infrastructure Transportation Association and Local Operator Union 324. As a matter of fact, there are several projects in Calhoun County that are being affected by that within the local area. So certainly something we're watching very closely. As much as you well know, road issues being what they are today, to have this be another obstacle is frustrating to a lot of folks. So certainly glad to see the downtown is progressing. Hopefully get that done before long. Senior transportation, something that as a senior millage allocation committee member, transportation as far as for seniors has been very important, something I've really advocated for. Recently I've received a couple of calls regarding some seniors in which have had to cancel 4 of their if you will, doctor's appointments because simply the transportation in which we provide through community action simply was not available and wasn't willing to adjust their timing in order to do that. And I'll be the first one to tell you that if our seniors are starting to miss doctor's appointments, that's problematic for me. So something I'm going to continue to work on with respect to that. As you well know, my newsletter is out. It's always available to folks that are interested in it. Most of you folks do receive it by email. It's also available at the Albion District Library as well. It's a great resource to know what's going on in around the 7th District. This month, we talk about the Calhoun County financial audit. It was actually completed just this past July. It had revenues of about $44.7 million, expenditures of about $43.6 million. We have about a fund balance of 10.91%, which is very good. The public safety budget is about $19 million of that budget, so a lot of money spent on the public safety side. I'll be real quick. Page 4 is the Healthy Babies Day, which you guys have already had your proclamation for, which is a great event. Certainly anything I can do to blast that out amongst my newsletter, I always take that opportunity to do so. Also, to the lead task force, Ms. Scam referred to, I had included in my newsletter. Again, is always good. And anything that you folks would like put in my newsletter, please let me know because I'm always able to put in something that may certainly be beneficial. And then finally, real quickly, I want to take the opportunity as we know, we're in election season at this point in time, as we all know, as here we are. I was honored enough to receive the official endorsement of the Calhoun County Sheriff's Association, Police Association of Michigan. I'm certainly honored to that endorsement time that the folks put on for me and serve. One of us certainly appreciate it. Unless there's a question, it's each and every month. Please.
Lawler.
Thank you. Thank you. For Albion, I'm excited. You mentioned that some of the seniors missed their appointment. Was this through the connector, and was it any Albion resident?
Actually, it would have been not specifically the connector. This will be the is provided through community action through the and one of the things having canceled their appointment because they're sheltered in. Because again, we pay all of you. Anybody that pays taxes in Calhoun County pays for that millage, and those services need to be available for any senior that may need them, especially the sheltered ones that don't have a transportation available to them. And when I hear that they're missing doctor's appointments, that's problematic for me. And being on the Senior Millage Allocation Committee, I've already indicated to our senior services manager that that's unacceptable. It needs to be dealt with. Because as we know, the doctor doesn't schedule around us. We have to schedule around them. And this, as a matter of fact, these folks, as a matter of fact, did their due diligence, called in 24 hours in advance, which was required under the community actions request, and did everything they needed to do, but yet weren't able to be served, and that to me is unacceptable. And that doesn't matter where they live, no matter if it's Albion or wherever they may be, but I certainly will keep on top of that to make sure that anybody that buys that will get the service they deserve. So, that.
Thank you, Commissioner, for all you do.
No, you're fine. You guys have a good evening, all right? Thank you very much.
Yeah, one thing, Mr. Mayor, members of council, the marijuana applications that were provided to you by the clerk need to be turned back into the clerk before you leave, please, because those are non-public.
Thank you. Okay, I'd ask for a motion to go into closed session. Okay, is there a second?
Support.
Okay, we can probably do that voice vote.